Welcome everybody to Tesla Today. So in this show, we're going to review 14 companies, electric car companies who are at one point considered to be Tesla killers. And we're going to review each one of them. And it sure seems like that one by one, each of them are dropping like flies. This Sunday, we're going to hear Tesla's report of their deliveries and production numbers. And so we've got Brian White with us. Brian is host of his own YouTube channel called MyTeslaWeekend, and he follows these deliveries and production numbers very closely. We're going to show him, he's going to show us his methodology and how he follows everything. Thank you so much for joining me, Brian.
Good morning, Herbert. Good to talk with you.
Wonderful. Let's get going. There's a lot for us to cover. So the first thing we'll want to do is basically go through. And the first day, today's June 28th. It's Elon's birthday. So happy birthday, Elon. This is his mother saying happy birthday, 52 years of laughing. And she just said your grandfather had the words "keep smiling" on the back of his business cards. It's a family tradition. What a great mom. She is wonderful. We're going to meet her at the Tesla Takeover in next month in July, where she's the featured speaker, which you and I are also going to be attending that. So that'll be
I
great.
will be
California.
there.
This is Elon as a baby, great smile. And this is their family that's taken about a year or 2 years ago. Wonderful. So happy birthday, Elon.
So beautiful.
Nice.
And what a contribution to the world, right?
Amazing contribution to the world. So that was a great important thing that happened for the world. Okay, so it's a lot of things happening. Let's go through them. We had yet another legacy car company agree to use the North American charging standard, which is what Tesla's using for superchargers, what they've opened open source for others to follow. Volvo has agreed to join in now. I mean, it's pretty obvious that everybody's going to fall like flies too. They're all going to join too. And so this was a nice tweet from this person that basically says, here's kind of the wrap up. So starting next year, there's already 4 automakers who've agreed to use NACS. Everybody will. But right now, it's been GM, Ford, Rivian, and now Volvo who've agreed and partnered with Tesla. That's 80% of EV sales. So the rest are just kind of like just rounding up the round number there. It's also the primary connector now for 2/3 of all the fast chargers and companies that are offering charging systems. They're also announcing deals. And then SAE is formalizing the NACS standard in 6 months. So it's pretty obvious, and it's a much better system. You can see the Tesla NACS standard is kind of a simple plug, but the CCS standard is a massive thing. So any thoughts on this, Brian?
It's huge. We know. We talked about it. I think the next, it's not official that Polestar is following Volvo's lead, but they will. They share engineering. They share production. It's going to be right there with it. And yeah, the charging war, the standard war for charging in North America is over. It's done. The war now moves to South America, where the charging infrastructure hasn't been built out as much. And I'd say 98% confident NACS will be adopted there as well, because especially with Giga Nueva Leon coming online, they're going to be using NACS. They're going to be exporting to the developing world, South America, Latin America. And so we'll see that coming as well. And I don't know what's left to say about that. It's just a done deal.
It's a done deal. Okay. So this Sunday, we're going to see Tesla report their delivery and production numbers. I mean, everybody's saying it's going to be record production. Can you remind me, what are the Wall Street analysts? What are they now at? What are they expecting?
Depending on the analyst, they're looking at production of between 440 and 450. 450,000 units is on the high end of what they are expecting. And they've done pretty well most quarters in terms of getting their estimates out and correct. But they don't follow these things as closely as some of us who are dedicated to one brand. So you can't expect somebody whose specialty is the entirety of automotive or the entirety of tech to get it right. Herbert, these people are only paid a few $100,000 a year. You can't expect good numbers.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, well, you're worth millions, Brian. So you said production, though. Did you not mean delivery numbers?
Well, they post both. And different people prioritize different things. In the future, production and delivery numbers will converge.
Yeah.
There can be a difference right now because the company is scaling so quickly, and we are on about year 2 of trying to unwind the delivery wave. And as the number of units in inventory will likely continue to grow, just based on if it remains, 3% of production, that 3% becomes a larger number each quarter. So I often use the terms interchangeably, even though they're not.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's take a look at what you are tracking. This is your table. So
Mm-hmm.
Brian is pretty amazing. He is also somebody who follows these numbers, who makes predictions, and very clearly knows what's going on in each of the gigafactories. He has his eye on them daily. And we often in our shows, he tells us what's going on in each of the gigafactories. So you have it broken down by make and model, you got it broken down by factory, and you've been following this for many years. And you're showing here Q2 of last year, Q3, Q4, and then this is your Q1 numbers. And of course, we're waiting for the Q2 numbers to come out this Sunday. But in
Mm-hmm.
Q1, uh, they reported 440,000. You were predicting 444, which is just an error, 0.84%. You did really well. And I think you told me that even for the last quarters, right? You're within
Oh
one
yeah,
or
I'm
2%, or
always
what was it?
within. I'm my my biggest errors generally are under 2%. Uh, they're usually under 1%. I've had one quarter where I missed by more than 2%, and it was, I want to say, Q1 of 21. I missed by 91 cars, making
Wow.
it one of the most accurate. I mean, I'm no,
Yeah.
I've seen numbers that have come closer once, but and Wall Street was predicting like 420-ish. So I was, 6 times closer than Wall Street. But again, Herbert, these guys only make hundreds of thousands of dollars. How can they be expected to come up with good numbers
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
they're only paid orders of magnitude more than me?
Yeah.
So yeah, I get real close, and this is the first time anyone's seeing this publicly. The numbers were already published for my patrons and my YouTube members and my Twitter subscribers, which was just enabled yesterday. So of whom there are so far 0, but we'll see if that becomes a
Who's going
thing.
to be the first subscriber to your Twitter?
Who
You
is?
should, because, like I said, Brian actually does real analysis. He reports these things. He shares it, much like the others do. But there's only a handful of them that can do this. So this is crazy, Brian. This is absolutely crazy. You are
Yeah.
going to predict 489, uh, 489,000 cars for Q2 is going to be delivered. This is, well, actually, you call it production. This is way higher than most people. You just said that it's in between 420 to 450. Few people are above 450. This is a great number. Wow. If this
It,
happens, we're going to
yeah.
see the stock skyrocket.
Well, and if you look at year over year, you're going to see huge gains in Shanghai because they were closed for part of last year during this quarter. You're going to see huge gains in Texas and Berlin, who had just really started their ramp this time last year. You can see the numbers on the screen there. So, in order to not have huge numbers, and in Q1, Berlin and Texas were still in their ramp. We saw the ramp being announced as, with new milestone numbers during the quarter. So the only question marks are Shanghai and Fremont. And I know there's been some talk of doom and gloom, but I'll have a whole video on this, Friday, I guess, where I break down my numbers. And I may revise this between now and then, but right now I haven't seen a compelling reason to come in lower than 489, 373. And believe me, when I'm this far from the pack, I sweat a little bit. But that time that I was within 91 cars, I was the outlier. I was the number that was the most crazy. And I even had a guy come into my comments and say, "Hey, new guy, pardon my skepticism, but I'll stick with following the big dogs because, why would I believe you?" And he literally came back and said, "I wish to apologize."
There you go. Well
It was
done.
great.
I mean, we do have James Stevenson, I believe. His number is
Mm-hmm.
over 500,000. You're not
Ooh.
the furthest to the far right. to the
Wow.
highest. But you are definitely out there. And I want to clarify, you actually have these numbers here under
I
Q2.
do.
You just didn't share it here with us because it is being shared right now with your Patreons, with your subscribers to YouTube and Twitter. And you'll release that to us shortly, but not today. So, but thank you for sharing this number at least. I
Yeah.
appreciate you for doing this on my show.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is we'll come back to it and see how accurate you are. But this is gives me some hope and optimism to see what will happen. I'm happy with them saying it's lower because I don't like us publishing big numbers and expectations high and then, but it does sure sound like Brian that even though everybody expects record numbers like 450, it feels like even a few of the analysts, just a handful of them, are giving downgrades. So they kind of feel like they've baked it in.
Yeah. Who knows what those guys are all about? They, their ratings to me are meaningless. They are, the more I've looked into their numbers and their methodology, and they're very opaque with their methodology. Unlike the analysts you'll find on Twitter and YouTube, they don't show their math. You don't know where these numbers came from. It's and then the late analysts, the ones who publish their numbers last, you'll find, oh, magically they're right in the middle of the pack. So either they didn't do the work and they're just copying somebody else's
Gotcha.
homework,
Yep.
or they're just saying, you know what, if I'm wrong, at least I'll be in good company.
Exactly. That's what they're doing. Okay. This is the main topic of today's show. We're looking at the various electric vehicle car companies out there. How are they doing? Here's 14 of them. And at one point, each of them has what's called a Tesla killer. Arkimoto, Nikola, Lordstown, Faraday Future, Rivian, Lucid, and then the Chinese car companies NIO and Xiaopeng, Fisker. These ones were in the list here. I'm not sure why BYD and others. It's not a complete list, of course, of every company that's making electric vehicles, but these were the ones that were considered to be Tesla killers at one point. So, what's your reaction to this? And tell me a little bit more about each of these companies.
You bet. So first of all, it's a fun list because it's beautiful, if a bit completely misleading. So
Mhm.
Arkimoto down 100%. Arkimoto was never a Tesla killer. They made three-wheel open air vehicles. Um, they would at best be a rickshaw killer. Uh,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah.
they and they have had some tremendous struggles. Their CEO was ousted after an incident that is unfortunate, but that's not the reason the company's in trouble. The reason is their execution is lackluster, to put it mildly. They bought a big new factory and just can't turn out vehicles. They have beautiful, grand ambitions, but their execution is off the charts in the wrong direction. It's not yet on the charts. And then
Mhm.
Nikola, boy, they were called a Tesla killer very briefly because they only had a rendering of a pickup truck. I have heard rumors that there was an actual physical prototype, not a prototype so much as just a glider, but it was, yeah, they're in a world of trouble because they've shut down production of their battery electric truck, and they're planning to transition to their hydrogen truck, for which there is no infrastructure. And yes, but there's hundreds of customers lined up. No, there's hundreds of individual units of potential
Yeah.
sales lined up. Meanwhile, the truck it's got a massive addressable market. So I think because they're almost out of money, they're just gambling that a fossil fuel company will step in and say, yes, this is it. Hydrogen is the way, and give them money. And that is a Hail Mary at best. And then Lordstown, they make pickup trucks. We're going to talk about them later, I think, but
Mhm.
that's unfortunate. It's a good looking truck, but it's really hard to get into this business. Faraday Future has always been a pretty conspicuous scam, from their self-driving car that wouldn't move on stage to just not really being in business. Canoe, we've seen, it's the one that looks like a dark Twinkie. It's a cool van, and I've seen it in person at the fully charged in San Diego. I might have
Yeah.
seen it somewhere else, but it's a neat concept. And they've built a handful and they've sold a handful. And then Workhorse, who makes last mile delivery trucks, but they don't actually build them. They just electrify them. And yeah, down this list. What's not on this list to me is more interesting. Now, let's skip to the bottom and I'll just say Rivian, they're down 92%, but they're not out. They're still going. Their cash burn is not killing them yet. And they, of the people struggling, they're still likely to make it. Lucid, we've got a lot to talk about there. I made a video yesterday sharing some insights that were shared with me that should alarm any viewer. And not to call myself a market maker or anything, a mover and shaker, but on this terrible news I put out yesterday, the stock went up. Oh, that's right. Small channel. Neo, Xiaopeng, they're both still kicking. Their financials may be bad, but they're not worse than they were, at their all-time highs. And Fisker remains to be seen. I don't think they're going to make it. What's not on this list is more interesting. BYD's been called the Tesla killer, and they're not on the list because if you included them, you'd see they're not down to such a degree that it would be breathtakingly embarrassing. But all the legacy guys have been called that. Who was it? The big, Mark, what's his name? The short seller, the Big Short. He had a whole presentation that he gave to short sellers. You can find it on YouTube. Mark Berry. Yeah. Where he said, guys, you don't understand. Jaguar's coming out with their electric vehicles. Tesla's over. They're done. And that was years ago. May I see them? Because I don't know if I've ever seen an I-Pace in real life. I'm sure I've seen a couple, but where are they? Audi's coming out with they're going to have, a full range of electric vehicles within 2 years. That was in like 2014. We heard that. GM's going to have a dozen models in the next 3 to 4 years. That was in probably 2013. We heard that. What was the latest one we saw? Toyota. Yeah. Every time someone comes out and says Toyota's got all the Tesla killers, they're going to be they're going to have 10. Yeah. James Stevenson, I cannot underscore enough, says, oh, look, here's a history of all their electrification goals that are just a few years out, going back 10, 11 years. And it's the same. I mean, they're playing their greatest hits. When you got a jam that works, you just keep playing it. And you got to, as an investor, you'd be wise to be skeptical at some point, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Toyota's been just making announcements and never really following through. So that's a good list. Now, just to remind folks, I think this list was created because they're just looking at stock price and seeing how if you had invested money, how much you would have lost. It's not, I'm glad that you were able to give the kind of the backdrop, the story, the context of each one of them. But this is just stock price, meaning everybody's
losing just stock
price. Yeah, they're losing confidence in them. And but certainly Lordstown is going out of business. And so for sure, it kind of has some sort of connection. So here's Lordstown, just came out yesterday saying that they're filing for bankruptcy. This is their endurance electric truck. Sure look pretty good, right? Look decent.
Yeah.
That's a truck.
I've seen them in person. They look great.
Wonderful. Okay. They filed for bankruptcy and they're suing their partner Foxconn. So the two of them were they were keep investing. And then of course, Foxconn decided to not invest anymore and they just let them die. So the fate of the Endurance Electric is up again in the air as the company plans to sell off its assets. So many of them exploded in 2020. This is where everybody thought, okay, this is it. They're going to get lots of money. Nikola, Canoe, Faraday Future, Arrival. The excitement quickly faded after a short seller released a report accusing Lordstown of inflating the pre-order numbers. You were kind of talking about that right now. Many of them kind of say that they have these order numbers, but really it's not like somebody's buying it. They're just, shell games, right?
That's exactly what we're looking at. And what Lordstown is up against is, go back to that picture where you saw a row of them. It is just a truck. It is just a truck. It's a battery skateboard with a truck. And The bed isn't longer. The cab isn't innovative.
Mhm.
The only thing it's got going for it is a kind of cool look.
Mhm.
If you're going to make just an electric truck, how are you going to compete on a manufacturing cost basis against GM and Ford and all the others who are actually, who have the numbers to back it? They might have the best engineering. This truck might be 20% better than anything else out there, but that doesn't matter if your parts cost 30% more to get. And we're looking at, I saw a person yesterday very angry saying, oh, Tesla lied. The Cybertruck is never going to be, $40,000. Well, part of that is that it doesn't look like there's a plan to release a single motor version. That was going to be the $40,000 car. But also, GM and Ford also said 40,000, and the Lightning is now 80, and the Silverado
Right.
Work Edition is 80-ish. It might be over 80. It might not even qualify for the tax credit. These are expensive because electrifying something that big and heavy with that kind of hauling capacity takes a lot of batteries, and batteries cost a fortune. You might have a $30,000 battery alone it might just be the Hummer battery is what some of the speculation is. And that's too much money to try and sell something at a reasonable price. And then you get into a vicious cycle where, well, we had to add another 1,000 pounds of battery. Do we cut another 1,000 pounds out of the payload, or do we beef up everything? Do we put on more expensive tires, suspension, brakes, all? Well, we have to do that. So pretty soon you're back into Hummer territory where your trucks weigh 9,000 pounds and it's getting ridiculous. So I think once they started crunching the numbers, it just fell apart. And those
Right.
Lordstown orders, they don't mean anything because unless you have the firm price, firm specs, and know that those numbers work to build it at a positive margin. I can see why Foxconn got cold feet. I think the lawsuit is kind of pointless at this point. Maybe we'll find something out. Probably Foxconn will just throw them a few bucks to make it go away and just be done with it forever. That's what I think
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah. So as Elon said, right? Prototypes are easy. Production is very hard, but trying to create a company with cash flow positive operations is excruciatingly hard when you're talking about these vehicles. So, great concepts. They came out, they're struggling. If you look at this last paragraph here for Lordstown, it's obviously was bad news, except for late 2020. But by June, the founder and the CEO, Stephen Burns, and the CFO, they abruptly resigned. So they come out well, they raise a lot of money, and then as they kind of start moving forward, they have a struggle. And this is just a nice show of the stock price for Lordstown, and this is over the months. And so, of course, it shot up in 2021, and then it just slowly over the months. Now they're dead.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there's a couple of heartbeats in there, but that is a flat line.
nice. I love you. I love you. Okay, so that's Lordstown, which nobody really knew. I didn't know who Lordstown was until you told me, I don't know, a couple episodes ago. But Lucid is somebody I do know, of course. I've been following them quite closely, and you did a whole show on this. So Lucid, this is Gary Black, an analyst who is a big Tesla bull. He says Lucid will continue to struggle to sell 100,000 plus EV sedans. So it's hard when you're selling a car that is $100,000 or more, and then when you compare it to the available cars out there, including the Model S, why would you pay $100,000 when you can get a Model S for sub 70,000, right? So they have 1,400 deliveries in first quarter. Just tiddly squat. When many buyers worry if Lucid will even be around in a few years. And then he says, we expect Lordstown, Nikola, and this workhorse that you explained to all file for bankruptcy this year. Is there any others that you are expecting to file for bankruptcy?
This year, Nikola is the only one. Now, I would say that Gary is right about Lucid. Now, yes, I did a big show about it yesterday. It went pretty big, and we're going to After this show ends, you and I are going to be live on my channel discussing finer details on the information that I was able to obtain from a variety of sources inside of Lucid and outside. Why would you buy when he says 100,000 plus, he's actually being charitable. Most of the cars that they actually sell are in the 120 to 130 range, and they go up from there. 120 to 130 with kind of no options. That's with an aluminum roof instead of a panoramic glass. And in that price range, you could get a Plaid for less. You could get a Taycan for about the same price. You could get a Mercedes, the top of the line EQ series, for about the same money. These are cars that are either more luxurious, have better performance, or both. And, well, we've got the longest range. Yeah, for how long, though? Is this just an uncorked battery that's going to not last as long? They've got serious problems. And a long-range Model S is one heck of a car, and it's $80,000 instead of $120,000. That's insane. Who is picking the Lucid? And the answer is very few people. The problem they're having is their next ambition is a $130,000 SUV, the Gravity. Now you're going up against just the Model X, and that's struggling to make sales at a lower price point. I don't know where you're going to find the buyers. And they've got this huge factory with kind of nothing in it. They thought, well, Tesla's building factories, that builds confidence, that builds hype. We're going to build a huge building too, even though we have nothing to put in it. Is Lucid going bankrupt this year? No. They've got enough money from the Saudi sovereign fund, who now owns something like 60% of the company, that likelihood is limited. But in terms of buyout potential, I don't know who's going to buy them out, because the company would first need to be extremely moneyed, and second, would have to be willing to get married to the Saudis in reputation. Mm-hmm. Because if you're going to buy 10, 20% of a company that's already 60% owned by the Saudis, that's something that your shareholders may not approve of. Yeah.
Very interesting, Brian. Okay, so I'm going to put this chart back up again, because these guys are all the pure EV plays. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that is the only way to actually get in the electric vehicle market. You need to be a pure EV play. So everybody keeps thinking that the legacy automakers, Ford and Toyota, the GM and all that, will come and switch over. But in fact, they're going to struggle even more than this pure EV place. And that's why it's kind of disheartening to see these guys one by one dropping like flies. So as an example, I think you know this, but I don't know if many of the audience knows this, but in China, the legacy manufacturers in China recognize that their consumers weren't going to buy an electric vehicle from a legacy manufacturer brand. And so they spun off these companies as pure electric vehicle brands, because consumers would think, oh, I'm going to buy this existing brand. I've known them for a long time. They're a gas car, but they don't recognize, they don't attach the concept of technology and software to that. And that's why they needed to start fresh, create a brand new brand, roll that out. And that's what they've found success. And so the legacy manufacturers here in the US and Germany, they need to do something similar, spin it off. And that's why Ford is doing something like that. And they might spin it off their E division. But these guys who are pure EV plays, they had the best shot at this. And they're struggling. And so here's kind of like one reasoning. And you tell me if you agree with this reasoning. This is a Bloomberg quote. EV startups today face challenges that never confronted Tesla, which practically had the EV market to itself for more than a decade. So when Tesla came out, they were the only electric vehicle option out there. Today's startups, they're competing head on with the world's largest car makers as they introduce new EV models. So not only competing with Tesla, but they're competing with every legacy manufacturer that has one, with all that list of popped up, all the EV options out there. At the same time, Because of COVID, the supply chain disruptions in the wake of the pandemic hit many of the companies just as they were getting their factories in motion. Some have repeatedly fallen short of production targets as they struggle with intricacies of mass manufacturing. What's your reaction to that? Do you agree with that?
Um, yes and no. Tesla did have the market to themselves, but what they did not have was a supply chain. There were no off the shelf parts they could buy for a lot of the components that were critical to the manufacturing of it. They had to enter a partnership with Panasonic to build their own multi-billion-dollar factory just to get batteries to support their first true mass production vehicle, the Model 3. So while the market was all their own, the market also didn't exist. They had to invent the market. They had to build a charger network. They couldn't rely like Mary and Jim, who were just saying, hey, I'm sorry we forgot to build a charging network. Can we use yours? That's great for consumers, but shows a real lack of effort and dedication. The reason Tesla succeeded wasn't because they had the market to themselves. It's because they get a whole lot done with a very small amount of money. And in the Lucid video I put up yesterday, people were saying, hey, you're forgetting Tesla was burning cash like crazy too. They were not profitable for a very long time. Cut them some slack. No. Tesla's always been positive in revenue on a per car basis, which has meant that since forever, no matter how, every car you sell contributes towards profitability. The more cars you sell, the closer you get to turning positive on the books. And that's not the case with Rivian. That's definitely not the case with Lucid. The more cars they sell, the more money they lose. That creates this insane incentive to not sell cars. And these companies have proved very good at not selling cars. That's the one thing that I think we can agree that they've actually succeeded at, is not selling cars. So yes, the market was all theirs, but they had to invent it, and that's an uphill battle. Lucid trying to copy, Rivian trying to copy by starting at the top of the market is proving challenging, because the top of the market is where the expensive cars are. And right now, almost all electric cars are still expensive. It's easy to build an expensive electric car. It's hard to build an affordable electric car. So that's where they're gonna see their enduring advantage.
Nice. I love that, Brian. You're just so full of information. Thank you for sharing that. Very thoughtful. You know, yeah. So the thing about Tesla is their operational efficiency, the reduced costs. And you were just saying that, at one point they had a Tesla when they were at their early stages of creating the high end car. After the Roadster, they did the Model S, right, selling for 120,000, like that. But they had spent, I think their books showed that they were negative $20 billion. So it's very expensive. But if you compare it to these companies now, their books are showing that they're spending $200 billion. And so if you can't figure out how to build factories or build a car at a very cost efficient way, you'll just, because it's okay to lose money at the beginning, is what they're saying, right? Okay, yeah, we're still losing money right now. Like Ford is saying, we're a startup, it's okay. That's true. But if it's like 10x difference of how much you're losing money, you will never catch up. You can't flip the script and change the numbers.
Do you remember in 2019, Elon sent out an urgent company-wide message saying, look, our expenses are too high. We need to let some people go. We need to find cost efficiencies. We need to tighten the screws on this thing, or it's going to fly apart. And that was at a time when Tesla wasn't yet in a bad situation. But he was still saying, we gotta lean up a bit. And we see that every few years. Have we seen that kind of urgency with any of the other companies? I don't think so. And you would think Rivian, which seems to be the most serious of the contenders, we haven't seen that. We don't know.
Yeah.
And here's something I will share with you about Rivian and their insane policies and why their cash burn is so high.
Hmm.
I talked with an engineer in Michigan, a very high-ranking. I don't know if this story is one he wants me sharing, so I'm not going to tell you who it is, but a very high-ranking engineer who interviewed at Rivian. They looked at what he does, all that, and they said, and we like what you do. And real quick, just want to know, what is your salary expectation? He said, well, right now I'm making, 120 or 150,000, whatever it was. I don't remember now. So I'd want to be in that range. Well, he didn't get the job. And he talked with the recruiter a few weeks later. He said, what happened? He said, you blew it. If you'd have asked for far more money, they would have hired you. No joke. If you'd have said 250, they'd have countered at 220 and you'd be working there today. But the exact same person for half the money, not interested. And that's insane. That's insane. He wanted to work there because it was closer to where he lived. So dumb.
Great story. So you were just in Detroit. You were interviewing quite a number of Detroit automobile experts. You even met with Corey Steuben. Did you meet Sandy Monroe at Monroe and Associates as well? Yeah.
Not this time. I've interviewed Sandy twice before, but he was, I don't remember where. He wasn't in town at the time, so I didn't get to see Sandy. I also got to interview Bert Sloan, a former Ford engineer who worked on the Mach-E, who did that whole program. He is, it's a shame because he was with me at Monroe and Associates. And as soon as I turned off the camera, he turned to Corey and said, what did you think of all those miles of hosing in the cooling system on the Mach-E? Because that was me. And I was like, why do you wait until I turn off the camera? You got to keep that. That would have been. And Corey was very diplomatic about it because I mean, I don't wish to call your baby ugly, but that's too much hose, my friend.
Well, I mean, he's working on constraints. So it reminds me of this conversation, reminds me of what Elon said at an interview. He's being interviewed by John and the Tesla Silicon Valley Club. And he said at that time, a year and a half ago, he said, Lucid and Rivian are not long for this world. I highly recommend, if I were you, to cut your cost reduction immediately. And, so that was, he already knew at that point they weren't going to survive. And so it'd be interesting, we do want these guys to survive. We want them to succeed. We are all for electric vehicle revolution, but it is a lot harder than people realize. So here's some more news. Let's go through this about what Lucid is doing.
Just real quick. I just wanted to say, John is awesome. And I hope to get him on my show soon. That's all.
Yeah, he's wonderful. So I can help you with
Very
that.
smart guy.
So this is a news that came out yesterday. Lucid is partnering with Aston Martin for high performance EV production. So we just talked about Lucid's issues, and this is the Lucid car. And then they're going to now offer Aston Martin the drivetrain, I think, or whatever it is, the next gen motors could produce up to 1,500 horsepower. Okay, so first electric Aston is scheduled to arrive in 2025, and a possible quad motor layout with Lucid's next gen motors could produce up to 1,500 horsepower. The pact will see Lucid furnishing Aston Martin with specific powertrain parts for both the initial and certain upcoming BEV models. So Aston's outsourcing their work to Lucid. And then in exchange, Aston's going to give Lucid shares as well as cash payments to Lucid, aggregating $232 million. So that's quite a bit, 3.7% ownership in the automaker. I thought this was funny from this guy. Breaking news. Car company losing lots of money while making hardly any cars. Does a deal with a car company losing lots of money, making hardly any cars. From 2025, they will jointly make hardly any cars and lose even more money together.
The emoji's what really seals it. You got the party hat and the party whistle there. So it's a great partnership. It makes sense. Somebody asked me, well, why didn't they partner with Tesla? And I said, I don't think Tesla is willing to dedicate the engineering resources necessary to make the partnership work based on the number of units that it's going to produce. Not sales, not dollars, but units. Tesla's objective is scale. It's got to be massive scale or it doesn't make sense. From Aston Martin's perspective, this makes sense. They look at the specs on the Lucid and they look good. I hope Aston Martin at least had the due diligence to buy a report from Monroe and Associates that details the car, because these reports are not expensive for a corporation. For you and I, we would not buy them. They're not for us. But for a company, and I don't know the actual number, I've heard numbers in the $40,000 to $50,000 range. That's nothing. That is cheaper than hiring a new receptionist. So in it, they would find out. Now, I can tell you there is a disconnect between what you may see on Monroe Live and what you'll see in Monroe's reports, because Monroe Live has to be a bit more diplomatic, where the reports can be called hard facts. Now, so if you ignore the report, you'll see that Lucid makes a high performance, high horsepower, long range car. That's good. If you look at the report, you'd see it is not designed in a way that is sustainable and that is potentially problematic. The cost to repair anything in this system is outrageous and likely to result in very dissatisfied customers. Does that sound familiar? Because it sounds like Aston Martin to me. In that regard, it's a perfect marriage. It is, because if you've got a 5, 6, 7-year-old Aston Martin and you get slapped with a $50,000 repair bill, people will go, well, I mean, what'd you expect? Now, from Aston Martin's perspective, is it easier to do this partnership or build your own system from scratch?
They're too small.
They're too small. So this makes sense in that regard. And Aston Martin could still introduce those design improvements cheaper on an existing system than if they were to try and do it themselves. The problem is for Lucid. They can't build these components and sell them to Aston Martin at a profit with enough room left over for Aston Martin to actually make their own money. It doesn't. The numbers don't work.
They don't work.
So they don't. It doesn't. Yeah.
Brian, your knowledge is just never ending. So appreciate that you did deep dives in Lucid. You're sharing that with the audience here. I certainly don't know anything you're saying, so thank you for sharing that with me. This is the CEO of Lucid. Let's watch this 2-minute video of how he's talking about this particular partnership. And he's also, I think in this video, we also see GM Mary Barra in it too. So let's watch.
Technology is going to propel Aston Martin into a new era of electrification. And for us, it's a validation point of the supremacy of our technology, because Aston selected us in a competitive process, found that we were the best technology to use for their cars.
So we know it's a new source of revenue for you, and it's certainly one that analysts have been eagerly awaiting a deal like this to happen. It's deal number one. How does this speak to the pipeline for future tech licensing and more deals to come along?
Well, that's what's so exciting about this, because I laid out a vision for the company a few years ago, and that's what we call Lucid Group. There's our cars, energy storage, and technology transfer licensing agreements. So we started with a high-end product with Lucid Air, and we started with a high-end partner, the ultimate reach for the stars, Aston Martin, no less, a truly iconic luxury sports car brand. And I think this paves the way now for, in the future, moves to more affordable echelons within the market. And that's what's so exciting about this.
Okay, speaking of more affordable, I want to talk about China. And just today, Mary Barra was talking about the EV market over there. Take a listen.
We're starting to see our EV sales now grow. I think we were a little late on having some of the right EVs in country. We're doing that now. We have a Buick that's launching right now that's doing very well, and our Cadillac brand in general has done well there. So, but it is a shift because, and so we're working through that. I don't know if we'll ever, with that many new entrants, I don't know if we'll ever be at the, 14% that we were, but, I think we can have a sizable business there in China for China.
Peter, I believe you just made a hire over there not long ago, Zhu Jiang to lead the business over there. But it's expensive to gain market share overseas. You've got this capital and this relationship now. How high a priority is China for you?
Well, right now we're focusing on our domestic market, and we've just started deliveries of cars into Europe and the Middle East. So I'm really excited about that.
He is smooth, smooth.
Echelons. I can't do it. You can't teach that. He's
No, but it's not
his,
just accent. I mean, he positioned his company really well. He positioned, competitive bid. This is the top echelon of companies that we wanted to partner with. We're so lucky Aston chose us. We, it's been part of my strategy for a long time. But yeah, smooth, very nice.
I love that they're seeking validation. Yes, it feels like, that what a psychologist would say, you need validation, don't you? You seek validation. And he said, well, yes, but this is a very competitive market. They could have gone with anyone. No, they couldn't. No, they couldn't. There are a lot of companies that will not, most companies, virtually all companies would not do business with them. It was probably Lucid or a Chinese brand, because I don't know who else would give them the time of day. It's going to be a lot of work to build not very many cars. And this just opens the door to future licensing deals. Does it? Because I don't see how or with who. I don't know who else would buy it. Maybe all of the companies that make 10,000 cars a year, but most of those have already been bought out by bigger companies. You look at Bentley, they had their best year ever last year. They sold 15,000 cars. Wow. You can't make money doing that unless you're owned by the VW group and just using the tech that you've already put in other vehicles, which is exactly what they've done. So yeah, his accent is doing an awful lot of the heavy lifting there, and it's very posh. I don't see the benefits in this that he's talking about. He says, well, this is part of our vision. Great. Keep your vision board on your fridge, and the rest of us are going to talk about execution.
Well, I will say that this is probably the only option they have. If they can't sell the cars, then the only option is, sell license it for scraps and just because they built the technology. All these legacy car companies, the small ones, will need something, and so that's what they become. Is kind of
that thing. Yeah, that would be great. I would love. I think they would do well to just design and just design powertrains. The problem is their market cap is 11 billion. They're worth more than Volvo. They're worth more than twice. They're worth as much as Mazda and Isuzu combined. That's ridiculous. They sold less than 2,000 cars last quarter, and he's excited that they're going into Europe and the Middle East. Saudi Arabia was supposed to buy 100,000 cars, and they haven't.
And the host was saying, when are you going to go to China? what, sell 10 cars there or something like that? It's funny. I found that the GM, again, they really treat these guys very well. They position so well. And Mary Barra is able to say, we're really going to make an effort in China. We had the wrong cars at the beginning, but we got that now new. So she took something that was absolutely negative, which is they can't. The American car brands have struggled selling any cars at all in China, and then she made it turned it around and made it sound like, what we're doing just great. And anyway,
and they're not.
Watch out.
And they're not.
Yeah.
And at least she was honest in some places where I felt it mattered. We had a 14% market share. We'll never get back there, but we're going to do our best. I feel that's honest. I don't find the same kind of honesty in Peter's statements. Peter Rawlinson from Lucid. And Peter Rawlinson famously won't take real interviews. He only does these kind of 3-minute talking head deals where it's very easy. And every host knows you treat him with kid gloves or you will never see him again. And even people, yeah. Oh yeah. You will not find anything substantial and serious from them. You won't find anyone pushing him on what he's saying. You won't find any of that. And you know, Elon would do interviews when the Roadster was ramping, where he's in the factory, the warehouse where they were building them, where he's losing his mind, saying, "Oh my God, why are these cars here? They got to get out. You won't find that, and they have those problems. It's just they keep them plastered over so you can't see them."
All right, let's move on. That was fantastic. You're just the perfect person. Thank you for reviewing so many of these companies, and you gave a lot of content and context. So this is breaking news from Yashu Sharma. Just had him on this show last week. He is the host of his YouTube channel, Hit That Bid, and his expertise is actually in advertising and marketing. And he broke news that Tesla is officially advertising on Google. Very first way that they're doing it, verified via the ad transparency tool Google provides advertisers. 18 ads launched, likely more coming. So this is the example. Oops, I'm sorry. What mean you tell me?
Oh, I thought it was part of a prolonged segue.
No, see? Okay, so there's 18 ads, and these are the examples of the ads. Tesla Model 3 and Model Y. This is both in UK and the US. This is where they're doing it. Install solar with Tesla, power everything with solar, Tesla Energy, solar panels. I think most of it is Model Y though. Yeah, so here's all the ones for Model Y, starting from $395 per month, freedom of travel, supercharger network. So it looks like they're really trying different ways, which you should, right? That's the whole point. And you test it out. So yeah.
I love this. I'm happy to see it, and I'm happy to see that this is what it's become, because it's all about being able to track your conversions. If you just put an ad on TV, how do you know if it worked? I mean, we got some new orders. What was it from those? We don't know. But with digital ads, you can actually track click-through rates. You can track conversion rates, and this is very on brand, in my opinion, from Tesla. But I'd like to hear what you think of that.
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously, just exactly you said. But I mean, they're testing out to see which is the value prop that's going to make the most move. Is it high safety score? Is that the one? Is it the fact that it starts only from $395 per month? Is it the freedom? Is it the supercharger network? All of these things. Best selling EV. Great. You test this out. You'll figure out which one moves. Surprisingly, that they're trying to pitch solar. That part is like what?
Little weird.
They're slowing that business down. And so I don't know if that's only the UK, maybe. I don't know what that was happening there.
But it's all A/B testing, and it gets pretty easy to figure out what works and what doesn't. And and also with the internet, you don't have 30 seconds. Once you get that click, you've got infinite time. You've got as much time as you need to put together whatever kind of sales pitch you want. And people like you and I have been saying what they need more isn't advertising, but education as advertising. And any of those links can take you to education. The one saying supercharging freedom, that's education. Put to bed your anxiety over range, and we will see what actually resonates. A lot of times people think they know what they want, and they don't. A lot of people say, I want a smaller pickup truck. Why doesn't anybody sell a smaller pickup truck? My friend, they do. We just don't buy them. The people who say they want a smaller pickup are not buying the Hyundai Santa Fe or whatever it is that their little pickup is called. They're still buying the biggest trucks they can find.
Yeah. And then this is a third page here that I just showed. It looks a lot of it's the same except for down here, Tesla Model Y, long range electric SUV. And this one, reliable and efficient, best car for families award. The funny thing is that Tesla has so many position statements that are like the best here, the best that, and the perfect here. And they got too many that they could try it all out, but that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. I do have a couple more slides that I thought were really wonderful. They're important slides that just nice to keep track of and save. By the way, folks, if you subscribe to me on Twitter, I share all of these slides that I do for these shows, and I email it. And this is an example of one that you'll want to have in your back pocket for a long time. So this is in 2022. This is kind of a nice way to share, electric vehicle sales percentage of total by country. So in 2000, the salmon color is 2013, then the blue color is 2019, and the orange color is 2022. So you can see that in 2013, Norway was basically around what 4%. Then by 2019, 45%, and now it's at 80% of all sales are electric vehicles. Germany's next, and China is next. And but look at where the U.S. is. Here's the world, right? If you count the world, it's still around 10%. I think that's the number we reported recently. It's now at 10%, which is a huge market. Huge, that's like a key point. But the U.S. is so far behind still. So there's a lot of ways to go. This is 2022, of course, with the IRA and so forth. I'll go. And the whole point of this article was Japan is non-existent. They're not even budging at all. Be curious if you should do because they used to be the fourth largest U.S. car market, so they're important. But you should do a deep dive in Japan.
I'll make a note of that.
Yeah, and then this is another beautiful table. This is again 2022 from The Economist, showing the global electric vehicle sales, top 10 manufacturers. So everybody knows, and everybody keeps hearing BYD's eating Tesla's lunch, but only a few of us know that it's not battery electric vehicles. They're adding in the plug-in hybrids. So that's the black. The plug-in hybrids are the black. But if you look at the red, that's battery electric vehicles. And they're second to Tesla. And then you got Volkswagen Group's next, General Motors, Stellantis, and so forth. And everybody else is really far behind. So you think that Ford is such a big deal, but they're nowhere. They're not even on the top 10. So you kind of need to keep aware of all this. Yeah.
And on this chart, Mercedes, if they went 100% electric today, you'll see they still won't catch Tesla. Tesla's just their EV sales, which is all of their sales, eclipse a lot of these companies in their entirety in terms of total production. Mercedes is likely in the US. Tesla already outsells Mercedes and BMW and is climbing the list quickly. And Texas is still just getting started. It's only going to get bigger. And then with a more affordable model, it's going to get crazy.
Here's the thing. This is 2022. So we are at 1.3 million. In 6 months, we're in June, right? In 6 months, we're going to be at 1.82 million.
Yeah.
So the question, and then the following year, we're going to be at 3.5 million. So the question you have to ask yourself is, okay, does Volkswagen, does General Motors, does Stellantis, does BYD, how many factories do they have? Do they have global factories? Are these gigafactories? Are they efficient factories? You know what I mean? Do they have money in the bank to build and build these things? And so while this looks like, oh my gosh, BYD's catching up and these guys are close, that's just now we'll see. We'll see what happens. But as you and I have been talking about for a long time here, these legacy car companies are realizing that they can't just take their existing factory and have an electric vehicle come out of it. It costs them just as much to retrofit that existing factory than building a brand new factory. And that's what Toyota is now reporting. And so, it's starting to come out.
It's starting to come out. But I believe in XYZ brand. That's great. But I don't think they believe in themselves because we're not seeing anybody projecting the kind of growth in EVs, just in their EV sector, that Tesla is already building, because Giga Texas makes 5,000 Model Ys a week as of months ago. But that's only one production line. They've got 2 more going in right now. And then the CyberTruck, which is going to be a high volume vehicle, that's one factory. That's one factory that's going to be producing more than realistically 6 or 7 assembly plants from a legacy car company. And these guys, Tesla's a moving target and they're trying to hit it and they're not getting there. A lot of companies think, I'm going to build a better Tesla. How do I do that? I know, more range, more speed, comfier chairs, fancy, goofy stuff that somebody might care about. And Tesla says, I'm going to build a better, my own Tesla. And I'm going to do it by improving the process, improving the procedure, improving the factory, improving the supply chain, and making the exact same car 2% better and 10% cheaper. And that's what the big guys, that's what everybody else seems to be forgetting, is it's not about building a more expensive car. It's about building the same car cheaper.
Okay, more factories are coming. So here's something, just last point here was you and I had a big show a couple of weeks ago talking about the revised Model 3. We've got rumors. This is just rumors. But so far, many of these rumors have proven to be true. According to sources, Tesla's Shanghai factory has started small batch production of the new Model 3. News is not confirmed. The source said that in order to strictly prevent filming, Tesla's Shanghai factory has issued a GPS jammer so that you can't fly drones over it anymore. It's another sign that maybe these cars are going to start coming out. It's just another rumor, but piecing it all together, Brian.
Yeah, I've been watching those videos closely, and the drone pilots are having they can't fly over it, even though they're supposed to post signs saying this is a no-fly zone, you can't fly over here, and they haven't done that, but it's evident that they can't fly over it. The pilots have done their best. Wu-Wah has done his best to stay at a distance that he can do and zoom in, and you can't make out details, blow it up as much as you want. The resolution just isn't there. And why would you hide the view if there's not something you wish to prevent people seeing? I guess it could be a very elaborate game of deception where we don't have it, but we want people to think we do. But that doesn't make any sense to me. That seems backwards. So while it is just a rumor, I believe it's still a reasonably likely, a very likely rumor that there is Highland outside being tested in this little closed off lot, fenced off, security fenced off, where you can't see through the fence. It's in the northeast corner of the site next to what I believe is the design center. And it would make absolutely perfect sense that that is what's going on.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Brian. So you guys, you've seen Brian in so many of my shows. He's been be with me for quite a long time, and every single show is knocking it out of the park. Just information that's being shared that you can't find anywhere else. You've got to follow Brian on YouTube. His channel's My Tesla Weekend. He has deep dives in every single one of these car companies we just talked about. He goes and travels the US and other countries. He actually wasn't even in Europe just a month ago, and he interviews people there. And you need to follow his Twitter and his Patreon because he shares information just like some of the handful of folks who track this information very closely. Thank you so much, Brian. I can't. I really do appreciate all these shows. You're really good.
I appreciate that, and I did want to point out that when this show ends, Herbert will be on my channel live, where we'll be going over some of the pushback that we've gotten on the video yesterday, where I shared all these crazy things that I learned from Lucid employees and suppliers about how it's going. And Herbert's gonna put the screws to me, and we'll get to the bottom of it. And if you guys have comments and questions, by all means, join us in the chat for that.
Okay, good. So right after this show ends, which is now, jump over to My Tesla Weekend, and we'll continue the live stream. See you soon. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Herbert.